Hi, my name is Steph Loy, and I'm here with Corina Crummell and Spencer Thierwiller, and we are reporting on climate change and wildfires in South America. This is our study area, South America. It's the fourth largest continent in the world. It is characterized by diverse landscapes, including mountains, rainforests, deserts, and wetlands. The Andes mountain range, the Amazon rainforest, and the Pantanal wetlands are a few of South America's most known natural wonders. Next slide. This is our abstract. Our study examines the intensity and duration of wildfires in South America to understand the impacts of climate change over time. Through an analysis of wildfire data from the past several decades, we aim to determine whether the increase in wildfire activity correlates with accelerating global warming trends. We believe our findings will indicate a significant rise in both the intensity and duration of wildfires in the Amazon over the last decade, closely mirroring the patterns of global temperature increases. The study will also highlight the effectiveness of current wildfire prevention and management strategies. The results underscore a need for improved South American strategies to mitigate the growing threat of wildfires in the context of climate change. Next slide. Our research goals are to identify wildfire patterns across South America, to understand the connection between climate change and changes in wildfire activity, and to evaluate present fire management strategies. Next slide. The results of our study on bullet point: wildfire intensity and duration are increasing, obviously, but there's a distinct correlation between higher global temperatures and longer dry seasons. Climate and land use drive change in wildfires. And here we have our figure 2, which A to B to C from the left to the right. We have A is the ideal state of natural or rural systems where there is no tangible impact of climate change or wildfires. And then we have B, which is the incidence of wildfires without adequate fire management and under the effect of climate change. And then we have C, and then this is where things are lost. This is the tipping point where adaptation actions no longer have any effect on the recovery of ecosystems.
Moving on to the satellite data results, we utilizes GRCWIS, Global Fire Information Systems from the European Union, copyright 2024. Here we have the dates between January 1 and April 15, 2024. We can see prominent wildfires in Colombia, Venezuela, and even a little bit more south of Bolivia, specifically southeast. Even just at minimum, rising temperatures of 1 to 1.5 degrees Celsius is going to result in longer fires. It's also going to result in an increase in heat days greater than 35 degrees Celsius. That is what we would determine as heat days. Essentially, dry periods plus heat create extreme flammability. Thinking about the fire triangle, we are providing a source for the fire to ignite in an accompaniment of higher temperatures. And these trends match the sources that we found from Robinson et al. And Liu et al. Here we constructed a figure to help understand the different regional differences in South America and how wildfires affect them. For example, we've got the Amazon basin towards the northern part of South America. Here, it's primarily human-driven fires, but over recent years, climate change has been making a significant impact on the Amazon rainforest. On the left side, for A, we have the dates 3/12/2018 to 3/5/2020. So we specifically looked at almost a 2-year period and then compared it to the most recent 2-year period of roughly the same dates. And we can see here that there is a significantly more risk of future fires that will occur and what fires have occurred. So we have more of a higher fire danger forecast We have obviously more built up areas as time goes on. We have more accumulation in coastal areas, and subsequently, we are going to continue to have more of a positive feedback cycle. And this will continue unless we construct proper mitigation. Now, looking at the gaps, we have weak prevention systems. We can confirm this in another source, RIOCCA our RIOCC adapts UN 2025. And then we also have low funding, slow responses. Responses are getting lower. We can see here in figure 5 that over the years between 1980 to 2020, we have more of a significant reduction in precipitation stations. So we are losing our opportunities to be able to see where we're having increased dry areas. This needs to change. Policy is still largely reactive. You know, we're always going to be having some sort of pushback with policy. Moving on to the challenges faced. Again, we have for figure 6 here, identifying even more precipitation changes. In 1901 to 1929, at the top left-hand corner of our figure 6, you can see here that the mean count of stations was relatively high. And between 1987 to 2016, we're seeing a significant reduction in precipitation as well, right? So we're seeing some sort of correlation there. I would say that that is going to be a significant data gap. These are data inconsistencies. So the positives of satellite is it provides good coverage, but it's limited on the cause of why these wildfires are occurring. Our expert feedback was particularly helpful, but it was also limited.
Okay, so on to big picture takeaways. First off, we've we understand that climate change is a major wildfire driver. Um, Fires are lasting longer and burning hotter, as the data that we have presented states. We need stronger fire policy, and we need better land planning in order to further prevent wildfires in in order for mitigation to be a I'm so sorry, guys. And then lastly, early detection is key, but only if allowed by action. So there's two figures on this slide, both from GWIS. Figure 7 to the right is taken from GWIS, and it's the burned area in Mesoamerica and South America from 2009 to 2019. And this data is shown in millions of hectares. So as we can see, South America is somewhat consistent from year to year with some high and some low points. And then figure 8, also taken from GWIS, is the land cover affected by wildfires in Latin America from 2009 to 2019. This is per type of land cover. And as we can see, forests are the most highly affected, followed by a tie between grasslands, grasses, and shrublands and croplands, with wetlands being the least affected, aside from some other areas. So next slide. What's next, you might ask? First, regional climate fire models are needed. They're needed to properly document and report on smaller wildfires, as well as wildfire incidents that occur in more isolated areas. Wildfires are the only reported emissions in many of these studies, and oftentimes fires are used to clear agricultural land in the Amazon. So these are not reported as wildfires, and therefore, due to the nature of the fire, they are not included in wildfire reports or CO2 emission data. Next, we need to focus on resilience and long-term adaptation. Oh, previous slide still. Go back one. Oh, yeah, that's it. So many ecosystems lack resilience to future to fire, and partially because of human activity leaves many ecosystems more susceptible to wildfire outbreak. Um, Ecosystem resilience to fires can be improved by stopping deforestation and ecosystem degradation and promoting growth of healthy forests and the ecological services and benefits they provide. Um, Next, we need to support sustainable forestry and wildlife management practices, as well as environmental education for community members. And finally, we need better public outreach and prevention. The Brazilian Institute of Environment and Renewable Natural Resources, or the IBAMA, is a federal agency under the control of the country's Ministry of Environment. It's the Brazilian equivalent of the United States' Environmental Protection Agency. They've been combating illegal deforestation and wildfires in the Amazon since 1989, and they essentially act as an environmental police force. They focus on education, research, prevention, and control/combat of wildfires. And to the right is a picture from Augusto Doster portraying a team of Prevfogo, or PREVFOGO is the acronym, for the Center for Preventing and Fighting Wildfires. And this group is fighting wildfires in the Pantanal. Prevfogo is affiliated with IBAMA, and they fight these fires in more ways than one. They utilize logistics to allow their teams to access remote areas, and they apply effective strategies for fighting wildfires, such as deploying water via aircrafts and opening fire breaks to provide stoppage in the path of the wildfires burning. They also indirectly fight fires through environmental education, where they raise awareness and teach prevention strategies in an attempt to mitigate new fires and promote sustainability. Next slide. So this study is significant when first looking at fire-dependent versus fire-sensitive ecosystems. While wildfires bring on a natural reset in fire-dependent ecosystems in South America, such as savannas or grasslands, not all of the country's ecosystems have co-evolved with fire in a beneficial manner. Ecosystems such as tropical rainforests of the Amazon and the tropical wetlands of the Pantanal did not co-evolve with environmental pressures of wildfire and are classified as fire-sensitive ecosystems. So next, we want to identify the two factors that lead to increased frequency of wildfires. And these two factors would be climate change and land change use. Climate change has been a cause of heat waves, with extreme heat waves being 5 times more likely today than they were 150 years ago. And land use change is the second factor, with deforestation for the purpose of agriculture expansion being a very real threat to the forests of the Amazon. The combination of deforestation and heat waves makes for a dangerous combo. As forests are cleared and plant biomass is cut down and left, it dries out, becoming future fuel for wildfires. High temperatures brought on heat waves provide the source of ignition to catch this dry biomass on fire. We also want to determine what actions can be taken to prevent future wildfires, which include putting a stop to deforestation and ecosystem degradation in order to increase resilience to fires, banning use of fire to clear land for pasturage or agriculture purposes. It's just too easy for fires like this to spread out of control. And educating the community, as we mentioned earlier, and teaching attainable fire prevention strategies. And then lastly, we want to offer accurate data and information to policymakers on climate-driven wildfire risk in order to implement more effective policies. Better advising to policymakers will hopefully lead to smarter fire prevention policies being devised and exercised. Using resources for future wildfire mitigation and prevention, as opposed to using resources to fight them after the damage has already been done in a reactive manner. Policymakers and high-ranking members of government need to be educated so that they can create and enact beneficial fire prevention policies and better allocate resources to wildfire fighting efforts. For example, in 2019, during a particularly devastating wildfire season in the Amazon, Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro signed a decree banning the lighting of fires within the Amazon. We know that deforestation is a huge driving force behind these wildfires, and according to Brazilian forest engineer Tasso Azevedo, 90% of all deforestation in the Amazon is carried out illegally by gangs or mafias with ties to logging and land grabbing. In response to this, Bolsonaro deployed 3,000 military personnel to the Amazon to combat illegal deforestation and wildfire blazes, as well as enforce his ban on starting of more fires. Um, Unfortunately, not all the decisions being made by President Bolsonaro are of beneficial nature in regards to the Amazon. Throughout the year of 2019, he took actions in effort to dismantle the IBAMA. They were suggested to closing of field offices, closing of units, excessive budget cuts, and political interference. So it should also be noted that President Jair Bolsonaro's self-educated political advisor and quote-unquote guru, Olavo de Carvalho, believes that climate change is a hoax. So we'd want to provide accurate information to these policymakers. You can go to the next slide. So in conclusion, this group feels that a wealth of important knowledge and tools were provided for our learning endeavors in this class. We learned how to navigate and use several helpful tools for understanding climate change, such as climate models, online simulators such as En-ROADS, and satellite data index maps via Copernicus. Over the course of our time working on this project and presentation, we learned just how bad wildfires affecting South America have been over recent years. Wildfire intensity and duration are in fact increasing, and they are getting progressively worse as time goes on. The wildfire prevention and mitigation strategies leave a lot to be desired, and actions need to be taken quickly in order to save what remains of these unique ecosystems and their biodiversity. And I believe that is all. So thank you for viewing, and that's the end.